Now, if the first half of that looked unfamiliar to you, go back and watch the first video, come back to this one so you can learn where to set up, how to brace, and how to wedge. If you want to learn how to deadlift, there's 4 simple steps to it. Push, hinge, unpush. That's really all there is to it. If you have a good setup like we reviewed in the last video, the actual execution is going to be so much easier. Now let's take a look at each one of those steps. Once you get into position, either conventional or sumo, the first step is going to be to push, and then you're going to hinge. Some common cues are think about pushing the ground away from you, or like you're pushing into a leg press. We're going to push the bar up to our knees, and then now it's just a simple hinge movement, bringing our hips forward. Now we're going to unhinge and unpush. Push, hinge, unhinge, unpush. Now a lot of times when people mess up on that, it's not the actual execution, it's their setup. I'm gonna go over 7 different things that people mess up on the deadlift and how to fix them. Some of them come from the setup itself, which is why the video before this is super important to watch, but some of them come just from the execution. So the first mistake we're gonna look at is doing sumo wrong. I think this can best be understood by sumo is not a wide stance conventional. Take a look at these 2 different techniques here. Now this first one is what I call a wide stance conventional. With this stance, your hips are farther away from the bar, putting your glutes at a decreased leverage. And the reason why this happens is people are just trying to get into a wide stance. So they're abducting their legs and pushing their legs out versus externally rotating their hips. The reason why you want to externally rotate your legs is because that brings your hips closer to the bar. Ultimately, it shortens the glutes and puts them in a better position to be able to work. The second common mistake is a jerky deadlift. And what I mean by this is when you step in the bar, you never actually get tight. It looks something like this. If you take just a couple seconds to actually set up and get your body tight, all that's going to go away. The reason why most people should not do a grip and rip technique is that your body's not stable, your shoulders are not packed, your spine's not aligned. It'd be like someone just coming up to you and just yanking on your shoulder. Take the couple seconds, get your body set, and then lift. The third mistake is squatting, not deadlifting. What this looks like is your knees are over the bar and your hips are usually pretty far down. Take a look at this. You can see the knees have to travel back considerably before the bar is able to come up. Remember that we want our knees stacked over our ankles, so when we start in the squat pattern with our knees forward, we want to use considerable energy just to get into the good position. This often happens with new lifters who are just not comfortable being in that hip hinge position. Another common error that goes with this is your hips shooting up too early. The hips can shoot up too early for a number of reasons. Number 1, you started them too low, so they have to migrate up in order to get into a stronger position. The second reason is your back is not strong enough. As we push the first step of the deadlift, our back angle should stay the same. So when our back is not strong enough, we push and our angle actually comes down, making our butt go up, and then it turns into a Romanian deadlift. In order to fix this, you can actually video yourself from the side just like I am here. Look for the spot where your hips want to be when the bar comes up, and that can fix that portion of the issue. If your issue is your back is not strong enough, heavy Romanian deadlifts is a great exercise to work on your glutes, but also practice staying in position. If your core is the issue, I have a whole playlist dedicated to what the core is, how to test it, and how to train it. Check out that playlist down in the description. The next mistake is your back is rounding. I'm not going to get into lifting with a neutral back versus lifting with the flex back. That's a whole different video. However, your back should not move under load. So this is what it looks like. Moving your spine under load is just a recipe for disaster. What this comes down to is all the muscles that are within our spine now have to work as spinal extensors, when really that's not the best way to move. When we keep our spine stable and allow our glutes, the strongest hip extensor, to extend the hip, you're going to find a lot more strength in your deadlift. Often when people talk about how dangerous a deadlift is, it's because of this mistake. For some people, this comes down to their core being too weak, which again, check out that playlist down below after this video. For other people, it's just their technique. They're just not setting up properly. What can happen is that you don't have enough hip flexion, which is causing your low back to round, which you're just leaving it round the entire time. So try to widen your stance a little bit, rotate your legs out just a little bit, or even just completely switch over to sumo. One of those options may allow for more hip flexion, so now your back can stay in its position and not round. Let's get into ramping and hitching. Unless you're competing in strongman, you should avoid these techniques. Ramping and hitching are compensations for either A, bad body position, or B, weak glutes. So ramping looks like this. Once the bar gets up to the knees, you dive your knees under, use your legs as ramp, and bring it up. Now hitching is similar, where you're kind of just doing that multiple times. What happens when the bar slides up your legs are accepting some of the force, and you're able to get your hips closer to the bar, therefore making it easier to lock out. Hitching, I would say, is arguably even worse because you're adding this dynamic movement into the bar. Each time that bar bounces against you, your body has to restabilize to absorb that force. You should completely avoid both these techniques. If you do find that you're having trouble not ramping or hitching, again, try some RDLs. This allows you to work on the top half of the pattern. The next mistake you'll see is airplaning. Airplaning is when you lose lose tension on your lat, causing your arm to come forward. This almost always happens on the underhand if you're doing mixed grip. This is generally not noticeable as you're doing the lift. Once you stand up, you're going to feel that underhand finally rotate back in place. If you're not sure if you're really feeling it, go ahead and record yourself from the side and you'll definitely be able to see that bar rotating. One really good way to work on this is to tie a band to the bar so the bar is being pulled forward. This is going to be a good external cue to remind you to extend your arms as you're lifting. Before we get into this last one, let me know down in the comments which one of these mistakes are you currently struggling with or have struggled with. The last mistake I see is dropping the bar. If you're dropping the bar at the top of the lift, you're missing out a lot of potential progress that you can gain from actually lowering the bar slowly. Also, in powerlifting competitions, not allowed. If you're finding that you have trouble hanging onto the bar on the way up, check out this video on the screen for 2 techniques I like to use to prevent the bar from slipping out of my hands. I'll see you on the next one.